Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting back into Silver Surfer Black, to where at this point we reached the finale, and that is nothing like what I expected, but not only is it surprising, but it's like shockingly satisfying. And I'm telling you, like, if you didn't already know, like, Donny Cates is a poet, and with him concluding this showdown with Knull, and doing so with a few nods to like your Stan Lee Mobius Silver Surfer, but also, as I would say, a bit of Silver Surfer Requiem as well, it really just proves that this series is a work of art. And so let's talk about it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so up to this point, with us following the journey of the Silver Surfer, which had taken us all the way from present day, with the heroes getting attacked by the Black Order, which had sent the Silver Surfer and many others into a black hole, to where the Silver Surfer sacrificed himself to get the others out of there, which sent him alone millions of years back in time, to where lo and behold, he runs into Knull, the god of the symbiotes. And with doing so, to kind of state it gently, the Silver Surfer got the brakes beat off of him. And when this happened, Knull gave the Surfer his own symbiote in an attempt to control the Surfer and recruit him for his own will and purpose, which at the time for Knull was essentially just taking the universe back and returning it to complete darkness like he had it before. But with the Surfer eventually escaping and his powers diminished from his travel back here in time, in addition to his battle with Knull, and the combination of all of these events destroying his shell and causing him to be undone, this then caused the clock to be ticking to not only how long he would last, but also to how long it would be until Knull returned and he would have to face him again. And after running into Ego the Living Planet, to whom he had quickly made an ally, Ego then helped the Surfer to reach out to the rest of the universe and draw power from every living thing in order to compensate for the tremendous amount of power cosmic which the Surfer had depleted up to this point. And so now at this time, with Knull drawing near, and the Surfer who has more power on his side, but even still his physical state isn't getting better. And so now in this brief moment of solace, like, memories go back through his mind which extend all the way from his future past as well as his current past, and doing so with reminding him of his recent decision to not kill Galen before he became Galactus, which essentially would have been the first step to him giving into the dark. But with these memories that are coming back to him, they even stretch back as far to what appears to be like your standalone series, Silver Surfer Requiem, which is pretty crazy because one, this is like a standalone series which had given us the death of the Silver Surfer, which we now at this point see him recall as a memory, and it's likely that this could have much to do with his mind kind of being pulled apart and him actually seeing that lifetime which the Watcher had told him about where he died alone. But the thing that makes this super significant within Silver Surfer Black is that at the time with this series, Silver Surfer Requiem, he had very much been in a similar place, both physically and mentally, to where at that time his body was breaking down and he had to process the concept of mortality, very similar to what he's dealing with now. And throughout that series, though Reed Richards and not even Galactus couldn't save him, this caused him to eventually cope with the inevitable, which also led us to find out at that time that with doing so that he wanted to spend his last hours back on his home world, Zenla. And really at this point in Silver Surfer Black, with his body breaking down with everything that he's recently been through, and Knull getting ready to make his arrival at any moment, in the mind of the Surfer, even though he's choosing the higher road in the solution to stand with the light, he's still making his way into this battle with the mind state where he's thinking like, okay, you know what, I just might not make it out of this, or better yet, he just knows that he's not gonna make it. But at this point, he's determined that there's no more running, and that if this is truly his last hour, then he's gonna use everything that he can in order to push Knull back as far as possible. And with Knull closing in, he takes the energy which the infant Ego had helped him gather up, which collectively is a piece of energy from every living being in the universe, and allow that power to build up within him up until the moment to where his body can't take no more. And so after doing this, he charges at Knull, who's closing in with his Grendel, but with doing so only as a diversion to send Knull straight into Ego. And with doing so, he signals Ego to blast Knull with the heat from his inner molten core, which was really like your first wave of attack to allow the Surfer to gain more power, with buying him just a little bit more time rather than being executed prematurely. Because remember, aside from the fight, his body's already breaking down, which is already one clock that's ticking, but with this energy building up, that's another clock, and he really wants to make the most of the two so that he can maximize that final blow. And it's really like that fighting game where you're waiting for your special to charge up and you know you're not gonna win, but you still want to get that special move off. And speaking of special moves, there comes a point where the Surfer calls his board, which he turns into a sword, and he faces off against Knull, who of course is wielding the Necro Sword, aka the God Killer. And it is insane, like by far my favorite part in this fight. And to be honest, like I don't know who the Silver Surfer was practicing with in order to get this good, but I do like the cosmic trail that the sword leads, which is very Mobius-like with the art, but not to brush lightly over practicing, because if you think about it with Knull, like I really couldn't tell you who he was sparring with back at this time either, but he did create the Necro Sword, so you'd imagine he'd know how to use it. And really in comparison with the two, we know that Knull has used a Necro Sword before, but as far as the Surfer, he probably should have turned that board into a different kind of weapon. But in all seriousness, to the credit of Knull, who at this point I think it's safe to say that he's extinguished much light in the universe with the use of the Necro Sword, which is why he bests the Surfer as far as moves, and with doing so he impales the Surfer, who then sinks down into the Grendel to where immediately Knull follows after. And when Knull sinks in, it comes off pretty braggadocious because he's just going down like, yeah, I did that. Like, who he think he was coming at me? I made the Necro Sword. Like, you better ask about me out in these star clusters. Like, nowhere wasn't anywhere till I put it there. But with pulling the Surfer down into the Grendel, Knull then makes another attempt to bond the Surfer with a symbiote so that he can then control him and induct him into his army. But the Surfer uses everything that he has left in order to hold out so that he can make as big of a bang as possible. And when the light starts seeping through and forming into what is to be a new star that the Surfer's releasing, Knull immediately recognizes it and he's like, oh, you cosmic buster, you gonna do this to me? But when the Surfer releases the star, there is nothing that Knull can do about it. And as powerful as this blast is, once again the Surfer cannot kill him. But as powerful as this blast is, Knull hangs on for a brief moment, which just shows this like ridiculous tenacity. But with doing so, he successfully sent Knull even further into the far reaches of space. But after this victory, the Surfer then crash landed on this barren planet, to where he then removed from his chest the weapon which he was given by Ego, which was actually galactic seeds charged with the energy of billions of terrified worlds, which he had intended to use as more than a weapon from the beginning. Because with these seeds that he's planting, there's like a literal and a metaphorical purpose that are tied into it. Because moments just before his death, as he plants these seeds on this barren planet and essentially gives it life, he also does this in hopes that this world and many others will flourish and be a light that will forever stand against the dark. And with doing this, just before he combusts into like flames and vapors, he names this world Zenla. And with doing so, essentially creating his home world as his last act before his death, which much like the Requiem series, the Silver Surfer's life ends on his home world. Well, kind of, because check this out. Okay, boom. So the gases that released from Zenla out into the universe, they then made their way out to the different planets which Galactus had consumed, and they essentially rebirthed them within this timeline, which is a process that had taken place over the course of eons. But with this happening, this was like the redemption for all the blood that was on his hands, which couldn't be omitted, but instead rather forgiven. And later on a world which would be Draven Bar, this essentially was the reason why they started to worship a silver god. And so now recently I'd seen someone ask like, what exactly is Draven Bar? And I'd seen someone ask this to Donny Cates on Twitter, to where he had responded essentially that this was a nod to The Crow, which was written by James O'Barr, which is super crazy because The Crow, whose real name is Eric Draven, he was resurrected a year later after being brutally murdered on the day before Halloween, which is the exact same day that this comic book came out, October 30th, the day before Halloween. Like, how insane is that? Like, that is wild. Who does that? Apparently Donny Cates. But in addition to that, eons later, reformed from the essence which was spread across the galaxy, we eventually get the return of the Surfer, who at this point, once he's returned, he is back in black and he has now balanced the light with the dark. And I have got to admit, like, he's looking like the fallen one right now, because I swear if Donny Cates ties this back around to Thanos wins and this guy goes to throwing around Thor's hammer, then I am going to lose it. Because man, like I said, Donny Cates is a poet, and really just everything from the series itself to all the nods in between the lines, and from that to the release date of the 5th issue, like yo, like this really got my head spinning right now, because this whole thing was just thought out to a level of detail that is just insane. Like, it's just insane. Like, there's no other way I could put it. But that'll do it for this one, guys. I'm about to just curl up on the floor and stare at the wall for like 30 minutes and really just attempt to process like what just happened here. But let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. I want to hear you guys' ideas on the Fallen One theory. I want to know what you guys think about the narrative overall, but also some of your thoughts of where you think this could go as far as the new version of the Surfer in the near future. So let me know your thoughts below. Happy Halloween, and we'll do it again in the next one. All right, later.